The world is waking up, and you finding your way here today is no coincidence. The spirit world always has a way of guiding us where we most need to be at the absolute perfect time. I'm your host, Lindsay Morlock, and you're listening to the Guided Podcast, where we explore how the spirit world works on our behalf to guide us along our paths. This is where you'll learn how to live a life that is both conscious and connected, so you can supercharge your pathway to healing and open to life's magic and miracles. Come along this journey to see how guided you truly are. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Guided Podcast. We are back with Catherine Ann, our resident intuitive astrologer, and we are going to dive deep this week into the energies surrounding the upcoming full moon in Cancer that is happening on January 13th. So, Catherine, what do we have in store for us for this full moon?
All right. So this is a big energy, this moon. It's not just going to gently pass us by. I think when I was looking at this, actually, I kept thinking about how, first responders, people who work in hospitals, police officers, teachers talk about the full moon behavior, right? The correlation between lunatic, lunation, luna, that all is about like crazy time happens during the full moon. And this is not going to disappoint in that area. I think just big, big, big emotions. And so, because we have Cancer, who that is the home of the moon is super happy there, but that is the sign of like nurturing and your emotions and what makes you feel safe. It's that area where you feel secure. And if you're not feeling safe and secure, there might be some big emotions about that. If you feel triggered in any way, somebody's threatening your well being or your safety, whether that's emotional, physical, mental, whatever, there's going to be big emotions about that because Mars is sitting right on top of this moon. I mean, right on top of it. So within a couple hours, I think it's like 2 to 4 hours after this moon is exact, it becomes exact with Mars. So they're holding hands, skipping along in this moon. We're going to talk a lot about Mars and the Mars energy. But before I get into the Mars energy, which is a big theme, we've talked about it for the last few months. It was very present in the fall, but this Mars energy is going with us all the way until April. So we're really going to talk about that and focus on it. But I just want to dial in a couple more points that are particular to this moon. So, one of the things that's actually really great about this moon is it has a really beautiful connection to Uranus. So, the sun is in trine to Uranus and the moon is in sextile. Those are both flowing, easygoing, positive aspects. And we all know that Uranus is the like unexpected, lightning or sparkle or unexpected change. But because this is in these flowing relationships, it's for the good. I just heard that line from Wicked, like, I've been changed for the good. That is Uranus in trine with this moon. So there might be unexpected things that come up, but they're not scary, detrimental. They're like, oh, wow, that's a cool surprise, right? So, and actually, this really opens up this. Uranus is also about freedom. So it really opens up this sense of liberation. So maybe some great news or an unexpected change of events that like help you shine or sparkle or make you feel free. When you put it all together, it's like this enthusiasm. So that's really beautiful. And I think that if we can lean into that, that's a great thing. But while it's there, I feel like there's the Mars is still playing a bigger role. Um, and then there's a couple other things that I just want to point out. So recently, Venus moved into Pisces. Venus is exalted there. She's so happy there. It's great. And she is just sitting there nice and closely with Saturn, during this full moon chart. And both of them are squaring Jupiter. So, really, what that talks about is there's this flavor going on. And that's not just about this new moon day in particular, but it's a time period where Venus is in there with Saturn, where we're really looking at quality over quantity. So Venus squared Jupiter, it's kind of the go big or go home energy, like the self-indulgent, like I want all the chocolates. Or yes, I need every single random thing that I just found on my shopping spree, right? Because Venus is all about beauty and it's like so happy and flowing in Pisces. And because it's square to Jupiter, Jupiter's expansive quality can get a little out of control. So it's not, squares are usually tension. With when we're talking about the benefics, Venus and Jupiter, this isn't about tension. It's more about overdoing a good thing, right? Like
Indulgence.
indulgence, right? So the beauty of having Saturn right there next to Venus is Saturn is the reality check. Saturn is going to say, I so get you. I love Venus that you want to just go big or go home. But let's look at quality over quantity. What do you really want? Because this isn't about what do you need. Venus is about what do I want? What do I desire? And Saturn's going to go, okay, honey, but let's just, one chocolate instead of the whole box or whatever, right? It's going to help you because what Venus will do is Venus will overcompensate with the go big or go home. If you're feeling uncomfortable in these other areas that we're going to talk about, because this is a very emotional moon, this Venus square Jupiter is going to be like, so I'm going to eat all the ice cream. Versus with Saturn there going, okay, we don't need to overdo it. I know you have big feelings. Let's just rein it in a little bit. So I think that's a nice touch. So we have this really beautiful enthusiasm, happy surprises happening with Uranus. And then we have this element over here with Saturn and Venus and Jupiter that's, quality over quantity. Really enjoy what you desire, but within reason. So those are all really nice things. The other thing that's really interesting about this new moon or full moon is that it's the first time that we have a moon now with the nodes in Pisces and Virgo since 9 years ago and 18 years ago. So that is a nice little gentle introduction to this Pisces and Virgo. It's going to be, the nodes will be there for the next 18 months. And it's also in a flowing energy, trines and sextiles. So there's a lot of this like coming in softly, that soft Venus desires and beauty part, the bringing in that gentle Pisces energy for the North Node. That's all really beautiful. Uranus adding brilliance and enthusiasm. That's all really beautiful. So it's like I almost want us to hold on to that. Remember, there's lights here because the moon with Mars is kind of a whopper. We need to keep in mind that it's not all this. It's this and that are both true. So when I look at, let's talk mostly about this moon and Mars in Cancer and the fact that the moon and Mars in Cancer are in a whole sign trine to all of these planets in Pisces. So we have the North Node just moved into Pisces. We have Venus that recently went into Pisces. Saturn has been in Pisces for a while, and Neptune is in Pisces. So we have all this energy in Pisces. And what just kept shouting at me over and over again, Pisces is a water sign, Cancer is a water sign. These are flowing emotions, right? Lots of emotions. Pisces might be more ethereal and spiritual. Cancer might be more safety, security, family, and home emotions, but there's a lot of energy flowing back and forth between these two houses. And all I kept seeing was relationship dynamics because really what are relationships but emotions? When you are interacting with people in your life, whether they're friends and family, coworkers, or someone just walking down the street, that interaction at its core is linked to your emotions. How am I feeling within myself? How do they make me feel? Um, and, am I secure enough to hold boundaries and protect my space? Or do I not have boundaries and I'm letting my emotions get obliterated by, boundary invaders? So that this is relationships and emotions, there's just no way to untangle them. This is what emotions are in our like 3D representation, right? So this is what I'm just going to go through the flow of questions because all of this downloaded into my head about this moon Mars trining the Pisces planets. I think we're going to be spending not only during this lunation, not only this, couple days or couple weeks of this full moon. This is actually going to last a little bit longer, but I feel like this full moon is a launch, right? It's a really diving deep into this because full moons shine light. So you're going to see things that have been bubbling to the surface and that maybe it's time to address. So complete reevaluation of our relationships. Which relationships create a feeling of home? Which relationships create painful conflict? Which relationships foster a sense of liberation and security at the same time? Who are the people in your life that hold space for you to shine your unique light? And people might be coming back into your life with Mars retrograde. This is a revision time, right? So people might be coming back into your life, and you need to stop and think, am I allowing this person back in my life? Is this a person that holds space for my brilliance, or do they dim my light? Really important to consider how your environment impacts your well-being, including the people you allow access to you. And remember, we're looking at quality over quantity. So a small circle of support is so much more important than lots of people, but no support. So
Well,
that celebrating you in that smaller circle is so important.
and the one thing they're just pointing me to as you're saying and posing these questions is, one of the things that can be really tough about relationships is they require radical honesty. That's the word I hear, radical honesty. And are we really willing to be honest with ourselves and about who we are and how we show up? And are we willing to be radically honest about what we see from others? And I think this is part of that assessment and that evaluation because oftentimes we get stuck in different facets of who a person is. For example, I know in my own life, I have changed and grown so much. And I can see that there are people in my life who prefer to deal with me as the person I was. And now I'm in a position of needing people to be with me and hold space for the person that I am now. And it's really interesting to notice who has been able to move with that shift in relationship to me changing and growing and who hasn't, right? And so I think that's something for people to be aware of, right? Like you're going to grow, you're going to change, you're going to evolve, but who is, preferring to deal with you or be in, your space as wanting you to be a person you once were, but you no longer are, or that's not who you're becoming. Because I think that's so related to what you're saying about who's holding space for you to actually shine.
Absolutely. I think that, in so many areas of our life, I imagine everyone can point to, you think about a child that grows up and they think my parent still sees me like a little kid, right? It's kind of that type of dynamic. And there's so many different situations where maintaining a relation that doesn't allow you to grow and shine more fully as who you are in this moment can be detrimental. It can dim your light because you're having to try to fit yourself back into a box that you no longer fit. They just gave me the image of like a hermit crab that sheds their shell and has to find a new home. That's a perfect example of what's happening with this moon in Cancer, Mars in Cancer scenario. We need to have a home, whether that's our actual home, our work environment, our friends and family that fits us and lets us grow and stretch and feel liberated to be who we are. And I think what we're going to find with Mars sitting in Cancer for all the way until April, by the way, Mars was in Cancer in fall, left for a little bit in Leo, came back right now, retrograding in Cancer, and it's going to be there all the way till April. So this is a long-term project. Don't feel like you have to get this all figured out this weekend. But this is an opportunity to sever relationships that are not serving you because Mars severs. Mars is the warrior, Mars cuts ties, and Mars in Cancer wants to defend your safety and security. And so it's actually a great way to harness this energy instead of maybe feeling like at the whim of this Mars energy is doing that assessment of, all those questions with the people in your life. And I want to say it's not just people because we have relationships to places, to things, to belief patterns, habits, to our money. We have relationships to all these things. So reevaluating these relationships with, reevaluating your relationship with money and how are your beliefs or behaviors helping you feel safe and secure? Or how are
Yeah.
they not? And maybe
Well,
there's some outdated patterns.
I love how you bring that up as well because it's ties right back to where you started about the indulgence. It's almost like too, like where do we indulge, right? And what is our relationship? Maybe, for me as a recovering binge eater, I was overindulgent with food for many, many years because that was a codependency of mine, right? It was eating to soothe, eating to protect. And that is something over the years that I've had to sever my tie to more and more and more in the spirit of holding myself and my emotion with deeper love and compassion and actually soothing my emotions instead of stuffing them, right? And so I think that's like a beautiful um, element to point out to people around the different ways that this might be showing up.
Right. And then if you even layer on top of that, you may be in the space of severing a situation like that, a habit, a pattern that you realize isn't serving you. And in doing so, what comes to light is there's people that also have to be severed because they don't support your healing. They don't support the severing of this old belief pattern or this old habit. And maybe it's not that they're severed and like, drop off the face of the earth. Maybe it's just we're going to create some boundaries here because these people love them dearly, but they're not helping me on this healing journey. And so I'm gonna I'm going to protect my boundaries a little bit. And that actually takes me to the theme that I was given by spirit for this lunation, which is treat yourself like a baby. And the reason why it brought me right to that theme was if you think about a newborn, access to that newborn is limited. Parents don't just set them out on the street corner and let anybody come and have access to their baby, right? It's, are you healthy? You don't have a cold. Are you healthy? Are you kind? Are you safe? Do I even want you in my environment while I'm in this beautiful experience with my baby? And that is what Spirit is asking of us because this is such an emotional moon. Spirit really wants us to say, be gentle and preserve your peace, preserve your well-being by not allowing access to your space that's not safe, that doesn't feel good, that's not
Yeah.
helpful. And so if you're treating yourself like a baby, I feel like it's just such a good analogy, right? Like you're not going to give a baby hot Cheetos and, you're not going to, um, well, I don't know. Some people might shopping spree with their baby, but you're not going to give the baby the credit card,
Right.
right? Like, there's just something about that analogy where you go, oh, babies just need what they need.
Yeah.
They fully express what they desire. That Venus and Pisces expressing what you desire. Babies express what they desire. They shout for what they need. They ask for what they need, which this moon in Cancer, asking for what you need. And a lot of times, babies, what they need is truly survival, food, shelter, warmth, connection. That's what this moon in Cancer is asking you to say, am I providing that in a balanced space for myself?
And they need love.
And they
And
need,
the love, I think that the image that spirit keeps flashing me to as you're speaking to this also is anchoring yourself in what do babies do? They don't do, they just be. And I feel like that's a piece of this is pulling ourselves back to our beingness, that primal space of clearing the clutter from the mind, shutting the mind off. Like that feels like an important boundary, right? So, yes, we talk about creating safety from others, right? And having boundaries with other people. I think that's often what we think of when we think about boundaries and not allowing people into, in our safe space if they're not a safe person. But the other thing that I think is so important for people to remember is that we create our own unsafe homes, meaning the home, our physical body, our mind. And the more that we allow our minds to run amok and to pontificate and overthink and create spirals in our mind, we are not creating a safe home within ourselves. And so I feel like what Spirit's pointing me to with this baby analogy, in addition to everything you've already mentioned, is it is our job to sharpen our focus with our minds. It is our job to shut off that chatter. Lately, I've noticed my own mind going crazy over various topics. And so I'm having to sharpen my own mind. And I do that by reminding myself I am safe. And then I start humming or I start singing a song because I can't be in my spiral and saying lyrics to a song at the same time. So that's one of the ways I'm trying to keep my home safe and secure and uplifted and really just kind of reconnect to a place that feels good within my body, not stay in the unsafety of the havoc that my thoughts might be wanting to wreak on certain topics.
That's so great. And I was just listening to someone speak the other day, and they were talking about how scientists have identified that when you fully breathe, that full breath in and fully breathe, you actually can't think. Your brain can't think. And so even if it's going into meditation or breath work or just stopping and doing box breathing and in for however many counts and holding it to just stop, that's such a powerful way to harness that Mars energy of I'm cutting this off. I'm not allowing the monkey mind to take control. And the other one element I want to add to this is we also have a really beautiful trine to Neptune. Mars and Neptune are in trine during this moon, and that's also a beautiful flow. And it's like this gentle, sensitive strength because Neptune is going to be sensitive and Mars is going to be the warrior. So it's a excellent energy for do what you need to do. Do what you need to do with that, like that strong, sensitive strength. This isn't slash and burn. This is emotion. This is, I'm taking care of myself and I'm going to be strong in my needs and cut out what doesn't support them. So, we're going to look today at how Mars in Cancer and just the Cancer house in general is so important for everybody all the way through April because Mars doesn't stay in a house like this typically for this long. It's not on a steady retrograde path. It's a big deal. This means that the universe is saying, I really want you to get this. I'm giving you months of opportunity to really look at your emotional safety, your well being, and what needs to be removed and what needs to be shored up in this area of your house. So, we're going to look at this as we go through the signs. And I already mentioned that this happened back in the fall of 2024 to initiate this Mars in Cancer, and that was September 4th to November 4th. So you can look back at our lunar eclipse in September episode. I talked about the need to be able to protect my unique dream. So this theme continues. And then in October, we talked about Mars poking the bear. And that's kind of that like that sharp edge that we can have with Mars. But it's if you think back to September and October, and we talk about these areas of your life that are really getting highlighted in particular by this full moon, you're going to be able to connect the dots of where that sensitivity, where that need for safe space, where that, potentially that need for cutting things out to protect yourself in all ways has come up and is coming up again. So what we're going to look at also is remember that the moon in Cancer has very protective and mothering qualities. So treat yourself like a baby, be gentle. As we're looking at these houses and these areas, this is not a judgment. This is not a condemnation. This is treat yourself like a baby on how you need to move through these topics because they probably are touchy. They probably have emotional attachments and triggers that need to be looked at. Okay, so we're just going to hop right in and we're going to start with Cancer. So, Cancer, this is in your first house. It's all about you. So, it's how am I showing up in the world? It also has to do with your appearance, your body, your health. So, you may need to fiercely be protecting you, how you show up, and potentially your body as well, especially because the moon also represents your body. So, that there potentially is some health stuff here where you're having to, like, how do I nurture my body? For Leo, we're going to look at moving into the 12th house, which is your house of retreat. So the Leos may really just want to go into their little cave. And that's a long time to be in your cave all the way till April. So caution not to be doing this as a way of self-undoing because this is an area of self-undoing, but doing it as a retreat and a mental health well-being exercise. So for Virgo, that moves into your 11th house. It's really being lit up. So friends, community, it's the house of good spirit and groups, your hopes and wishes. It's actually really beautiful. But to me, this really speaks to what we talked about before about what people in your life light you up, what people in your life hold space for you to be your unique self, what groups and organizations are you a part of that do that, and what maybe need to be cut. Maybe that they don't serve that purpose anymore. For Libra, this is really showing up for you in your area of career, reputation, your public persona and legacy. So you may be reevaluating how things are going on at work. Do you have new career moves that you need to do for you to support your own desires? And or are there areas around your reputation that need to be looked at? For Scorpio, this is showing up in the ninth house of travel, religion, study, faith, the international, legal issues. And so, what you may find happening is that you're either looking at is there some sort of international connection to what means home to you? Or a faith-based community that really helps you feel home. This is also probably going to be kind of the wrapping up of legal issues. Mars is going to hopefully be able to tie that up and bring that to a closure by the end of its transit through Cancer. Sagittarius, we're looking at the eighth house, which is death, debt, taxes, resources of others, inheritance, and your psyche, the occult, and the other side. So for Sagittarius, there's a potential a lot of Sagittarius people are dealing with elder parents or family members who've passed, and it's like all this like resources of others and dealing with family homes and also potentially you could be dealing with making sure that you're shoring up all those financial elements for the benefit of your others, or maybe your partner is doing that type of stuff because it's the resource of others. But also for some, it's going to be that exploration of the other side of the veil and getting comfortable with that. And it's so interesting. They just flashed into me too. Or holding your boundaries, because as we become more and more intuitive as a collective in general, there's some people who are going to be like, no, you don't get to show up in my space. This is uncomfortable. They don't want to open up that psychic or mediumship ability. For Capricorns, we're looking at the seventh house of marriage, partnerships, relationships. So everything I talked about with relationships, this is really highlighted here. Um, in particular, though, it doesn't have to be a marriage relationship. It could be a business partnership. It could be your audience, your clientele. And where are you renegotiating, like what type of clients you will or won't work with? Or, is this relationship with your spouse or your romantic partner, are there areas that need to be tidied up? Or truthfully, is this something that needs to end? Because this Mars is severing relationships in your seventh house. So maybe it's just severing a part of it, maybe it's severing the whole thing. We move into Aquarius and we're looking at the sixth house, which is your health and wellness, your daily routines, kind of illness, pets, your daily work life, not your career, but like your job. And they are looking at what's working for them, in particular to their wellness. So, what my stress level, my health habits, my exercise routines, even like your pet's wellness. And are there things you need to do to protect their well-being? Pisces, we're looking at the fifth house of children, creativity, pleasure, romance, good fortune. This is a great house also for entrepreneurship. And so we're just shining a big light on all emotions related to that. And is that fun person that you've been hooking up with maybe not the best choice? Or do they help you shine your light and that is bringing you joy? And the same thing with your children. Or maybe you're going to have some changes there in relationship to how much you do or don't do in relationship to these areas of your life to make sure that you're feeling safe and free and comfortable. For Aries, so we're looking at the fourth, which is your foundation. It's your family, it's your ancestral lineage, it's your that private house, it's your home, real estate. So big light being shown there. And really the potential for conflict in the family if it's triggering that, they're not supporting you or your needs aren't being met. That's where Mars could get a little feisty. And then we're going to wrap it up. We have a couple more to go. So with Taurus, this is happening in the third house, your neighborhood, local environment. It's also communication, social media, siblings, short trips. It's kind of like the junk drawer has all sorts of things. And so for Taurus, what we're looking at is, again, what is home, but in your local environment. And really relationships with siblings. I feel like that's really going to be highlighted, and or extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends who feel like family. This all could be highlighted here of, does my fishbowl feel like it's meeting my needs, and all the little fish that are swimming with me, are they meeting my needs? And then for Gemini, this is in your second house of money, possessions, income, assets, resources, what you value, and also what you put in your mouth. So, not only are we looking at what things in my life are valuable to me, they match my value system. There's also this element of I have inherent value and expressing that, and that the relationships in your life support that. And then I think with this one, there's also the specific looking at your relationship to money, to food, to, energy exchange. So yep, so we got all the way through because the next one will be Cancer. So that's just a quick breeze through of kind of the areas of where we're really being asked for a long time. I mean, basically September all the way to April. What what does safety, security, and emotional balance look like for me in these areas? And what cutting activities need to happen to make sure that these areas are optimal function?
Yeah, I love this. I totally resonated with my particular houses, and I can see already how those things in my own life are playing out. And I think one of the things that dropped in as you were wrapping up there, especially, was really taking the time to go deep within ourselves and looking at these different areas within our life to understand how they're playing out. But especially as you were talking about even the Gemini house, right? You were talking about, because that's my rising sign, that's something of, right, that caught my attention. But I was thinking even about how you were talking about exchange of energy and where I have to look at exchange of energy with others, but also that energy exchange and resourcing and whatnot within myself. And so much of that, I really feel like the inner work that we need to do on a daily basis to create our own safety, sanity, and security. And if people haven't heard our thematic conversation for this month already on belligerence and sanity, please go to YouTube and check that out, because I feel like this is some of what we were just speaking to. But so much, that's what I find so powerful about doing the spiritual work, because as much as we are playing things out with other people in this third dimension, we have the control over ourselves. We have the control over our own healing. That is the only thing we have control over. So at any given point in time, we have the ability to lean in to this stuff, to really take responsibility for what we want to change in our life. And so much of what, you're speaking to in this flashes me back to some of these conversations that we had astrologically last year, where we were talking about letting go of the old and moving into the new and really claiming these new versions of ourselves. And someone always shares with me, they're always like, Lindsay, are you watering the old garden or are you watering the new garden? And I'm like, right. So that old thought pattern, that belief system, that shame spiral, like that is watering the old garden. And now, what does watering the new garden look like? And so, having to remind myself to step into that place of love, to step into my integrity, meaning my alignment with who I am becoming, not that old version of myself, is so important to watering that new garden. And so much of that energy feels like it's at play here, because what is the most important relationship any of us will ever have in our life, as we're talking about relationships, is the one that we have with ourselves. So that is always the place we have to start.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Just on another note, I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. So I live in Southern California, and although I'm, in San Diego, not close to the fires, the impact that this is having on just thousands and thousands of people. And we're talking, all of this Cancer energy is about your home, your family. And then big emotions with this full moon. And I feel like whether you're directly impacted by all of this and just needing to let all of that emotion out, this is not about holding it in and being strong, like let all of that emotion out. Or those of us who are witness to it, and even, you know, it brought some realizations to me that this is something very much more possible for where I live than I really took to heart. And processing those emotions, because even though you're seeing it from afar, seeing images like that brings up safety, home, family. And so whether you're directly impacted or you're just seeing it from afar, I feel like it's an opportunity for us to really support where we can support in all ways, whether in that community or in your local community, but creating that emotional safe space is kind of the utmost of what the energy of the universe, I think, is asking us for right now. And we're seeing it in so many global areas where that's being rocked.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I couldn't not talk about this connection to home and safety
Yeah.
because
I'm
it's so
really
loud in my world right now.
I'm really glad that you brought that up because I think it can be very easy for those of us not in that part of the country to take for granted the safety that we do have within our own homes. But I'm also being brought full circle back to this: hold yourself like a baby, right? And especially for people who are directly impacted by all of this, but also can those of us who aren't immediately or directly impacted hold space for them like a baby, right? Like, can we offer that compassion? Can we offer that connection? Can we offer resources? Like, this is, I think, the collective shift that we are all moving to. Like, we need to wake up the empathy within one another to really see in what ways can we support. Even if the only way that you might be able to support is to send some rain and cool energy and water to the West Coast and help, right? Collectively, let's put our energies into dousing those fires, right? Like, people don't realize that our minds are powerful when we wield them for good. And so, whether we are directly impacted by this or not, there is something every single one of us can do on many different levels to offer support.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I feel like I just keep getting pulled back to and acknowledge how witnessing, whether it's the fires or different wars or whatever, witnessing other people's lack of security does impact us and triggers us, and to also allow us to process and acknowledge as opposed to stuffing or, distracting. But it's just that treat yourself like a baby is for in so many different ways. In so like you said, provide resources. A baby has nothing. They are provided for in every aspect. And unfortunately, we have thousands of people now who are going to need that. So treating them and ourselves like babies, such an important message for right now.
Yeah. So, what would you leave people with as I'm going to scratch that because I feel like we just did the kind of thing. So, should I just wrap up? You feel like I should just wrap up? Okay. All right. So, treat ourselves. Well, I'm going to pause and give it a little space. Hold on. Okay. So, treating ourselves like a baby, really holding ourselves in that gentle, nurturing, compassionate space, really allowing room for our emotions, for the emotions of others to be witnessed, allowing ourselves to connect with that sense of safety and security within ourselves, and really focusing not only on our external homes and what that might bring up for us, depending on what situation we're in, but also really finding that sense of safety and security within ourselves to help us through anything externally that may be shifting or may feel completely rocked or untethered at the moment. Okay,
Yeah.
so with that, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We hope this episode was helpful, and please go ahead and like, share, subscribe to these videos so that we can make sure that the information from these are getting into the ears of the listeners who need to hear the messages the most. And we will both look forward to connecting with you all again next time. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to the Guided Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you would share it with a friend or even leave me a review so we can ensure that it makes its way into the ears of listeners who need to hear these messages most. Until next time, may you remember how guided you truly are.